I just finished an amazing episode with Jay McBain here in our new South Florida studio. Jay is principal analyst at Canalys, a global technology analyst firm with a distinct channel focus. We had such an incredible discussion on why every CEO needs to be a channel leader. We're here in South Florida at our new Boca Raton facility.
When did you hit the big time?
It's time to up-level the game of partnering.
This is ultimate.
This is the ultimate partnering. Ultimate guide to partnering and ultimate partner. So,
and live from Florida.
Yep. And you are our very first guest in our new facility here.
Very nice.
Courtesy of Media Zones, our partner, and just excited to be here in person with you.
Absolutely.
Sort of, we talked about this Florida, this connection where all the channel chiefs are coming to Florida. What do you think about that?
Yeah, all the celebrities are coming here, and we've got a good group of channel chiefs. It's the Southern Florida mafia for the channel.
I love it. I love it. Of course, with my Italian heritage, you had to say mafia. So, well, I'm excited to spend more time with you. You know, it's just 2 weeks ago that we were in person in Miami. We both had keynote presentations at the InPartner conference, and it was a really terrific event. And I really loved your session. So I was hoping today we could spend a little bit of time recounting some of that session, the 5 reasons why the next generation of CEOs will be partnership leaders. Warms my heart to know that as a partner leader and former chief revenue officer as well. So I thought maybe we'd start here. I wanted a deep dive, but you had some very insightful comments. I thought maybe you could summarize the 5 steps and then we can deep dive into them.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So, for years now, we've been making these future predictions. This is what's going to happen to marketplaces. This is what's happening to the new buyer. This is what's happening to the economics of partnering. And they were all a David Letterman top 10 list of, trends.
Yes.
Somewhat interconnected, but at some point coming to an inflection point. And 2024 happens to be the year of that inflection point, where number one, the new buyer is actually here. By the end of the year, a millennial will lead the majority of tech and telco purchasing, over $5 trillion. And that's both by number of millennials as well as by budget. Number 2, this platform economy, not just in the hyperscalers, not just in SaaS companies, but taken hold in security. But outside of tech, we always got confused that the biggest automotive companies and pharmaceuticals and banks wanted to become tech companies. Every company was going to become a tech company. Where we were confused is they actually want to become platform companies. And what that means.
Yes.
And that drives a whole different set of economics with the way partnering's worked for over 40 years. Down here in Boca Raton with August 12, 1981, and that first IBM PC with the first IBM program with Microsoft and others. But now we're looking at a very different thing. And this is the year that it all changes. And then generative AI and other things that come into it. So again, inflection point all into one time.
Yeah, I thought we would deep dive on these. It was really great and insightful conversation. Let's talk about the millennials first, right? Because we've been talking about the tectonic shifts and this new generation of buyers, right? The different buying persona. Used to clicking 3 times on my phone and a box shows up, right? And maybe they don't want to speak to as many salespeople. They want to make their own decision. They go through their own process. You've talked about this. And how the decision-making process has changed. Can you spend a minute there on that specifically?
Yeah, so different psychology, different behaviors, different journey that they're on, but suffice it to say they're either digital first or digital only.
Right.
And when you said, maybe I don't want to talk to a human, the latest research says that 75% of them would actually like to get to end of job. And this is to buy $1 million worth of software. This is to buy a car. I'd like to get to end of job at a very important big decision. Digital only.
Yeah.
And so that's 75%. So this is a different way to treat those first 28 moments before they make that decision. So that's one thing. Second is they're subscription and consumption friendly. Growing up on Netflix, growing up on Spotify.
Yes.
They're okay to pay $1 a month for the rest of their life for a toothbrush that just gets replenished, and they understand that they're in it for life. And this goes, again, across technology, but it goes into every industry.
Absolutely.
And the way they bank, the way they buy insurance, the way they, buy manufactured goods or, pharmaceuticals. It's okay to be in these subscription or consumption models. And that leads to marketplaces.
Yes.
They're okay buying 7 layers to solve a problem. No one wants to buy this all you can eat, best in class end-to-end platform. I'm okay building layers to my outcome. And I'm okay building it as a team sport.
Yep.
So in the older generations, you and I generation, we kind of looked for a single throat to choke, somebody that was our trusted advisor, somebody that could really orchestrate it for us.
That's right.
The new generation, it's okay to build a team. And it's not going to be a team of the same seven people. It's going to be a team of different types of people that have expertise in my industry, that have expertise in my geography, expertise in the sector segment that I'm in,
Yep.
the compliance and governance that I'm under, all of the different angles. I want to build a team. And I go back to sports. I don't need 7 quarterbacks
That's
or
right.
11 quarterbacks on the field. I need, 11 different players, but I need them to each do their job. Bill Belichick.
Well, we talked about partner to partner for years now. Microsoft parlance was around partner to partner. We've been talking about the decade of the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who coined that phrase, maybe someone we know personally. But this is really about ecosystem. This is really, when I think about I call it the marketplace moment, in fact. We're digitally buying, right? There's a lot of things that come along with that, right? The ability to consume against these large cloud commitments, but also the opportunity, as you say, to stitch together the solution that best supports your requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get into multi-party offers, in fact, where you can, in fact, layer several solutions together, serve it up to a customer who already has made $100 million commitment to a Microsoft, Amazon, or a Google, and say, this is exactly what we need, right? So this is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's the final piece of research on this new buyer is integration first.
Integration first.
Of all the things you'd write into an RFP that's important to you, the price is important, your service, your support, things like your brand reputation, all these things would have criteria around how I'm going to make my decision. Number one criteria now is how you work in my environment. This is both as a personal story as well as a professional one, where Apple got on stage last year and said 79% of people won't buy a car unless it is Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
They neglected to mention Android Auto. But the fact of the matter is, here's an industry that's $4 trillion in size. You may be, taking over a dealership from your great-grandparents, and all of a sudden you're going to lose 4/5 of your buyers because there's not a technology integration in place.
It's amazing.
And so watching this and then, feeding that into all the other parts of life, I'll buy a product that's 80% as good as the competitor if it works better in my environment.
Yep.
So how do we feed an integration first buyer, a digital first or only buyer, a subscription consumption marketplace friendly buyer? This is a complete reconstruction of how we do marketing, how we do selling, and how we do long-term customer success.
It's fantastic. So the next thing you talked about was the death of the cookie. You brought this up before as a big factor, right? And really why partnering is so important right now. And again, with my experience in partnering and as a CRO formerly, what would you say about the old acquisition models and the new models?
Yeah, so we talk about 2024 as an inflection point. And this end of the cookie, if you happen to be in marketing, has been coming for years. Yep. It was actually 3 years ago that on the iPhone, you could say, I don't want to be followed. I no longer want to be the product on the internet. And back then, Facebook was publicly saying this could put us out of business. Yeah. We rely on this. You think of Google, whose half their company relies on this business model of selling our personal data in those first 28 moments. And obviously there's active buyers. So this is the third-party data system where a couple of weeks ago, to start off 2024, Google updates Chrome and Android to actually stop limiting cookies. They also made a declaration by the end of 2024, the cookie will be dead.
Yeah.
So in a world that moves from third-party data, you remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and you remember, the billions of dollars, which has created trillion-dollar valuations for these companies in third-party data, selling our private data, is now moving to second-party. The channel, partners, ecosystem, alliances are who own these first 28 moments. The ebooks, the podcasts like this one, all the things that happen in these 28 moments now becomes a second-party data problem. And CMOs need to shift from third-party to second-party. And again, 2024 is the year that partners come out as the leading edge of the spear on finding this buyer intent. And this is just a remarkable thing happening along with everything else.
But it's what we've been saying for so many years now, right? I mean, many years ago, I went through a course by Miller Hyman, Strategic Selling. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea was to find out as much situational analysis or awareness of your client. And the best way to do that is other people that are talking to your client. Now, who else talks to your client than you? The 7 or 8 seats at the table. They might be competitors. They might be potential partners. They might just be friendlies.
Right.
And be able to have those conversations. And now what you're saying around this is that's why it's so important that we have this new data intelligence and we find new ways to approach the customer because we don't have cookies.
Yeah. And so, a story around Microsoft, for example, they did a better job of surrounding the buyer.
Yes.
They didn't have a better price than AWS. They didn't have better product. They didn't have better Super Bowl ads. What they did is had better coverage. Of the 7 people that surrounded every buyer, they had more Microsoft endorsements sitting at the table. Yeah. And that sat in the ebooks, at the events. It sat in the podcast. It sat in all the different moments that the customer was friendlier to that solution versus that one. And that's one example, but that's the future of selling, is a surround strategy of these 7 trusted people and how you get them to influence that buyer in those first 28 moments.
It feels like the rest of the world is going to start speaking our language.
This was part of why the next CEO should, have partnerships in their resume or be a partnership leader.
Yeah. So this year of the platform, I wanted to dive in here a little bit, right? Because this is somewhat new. You talk about every company wanting to be a tech company, and now that it's the year of the platform, it's a little bit of a different twist on this. Spend a little time with us on this one.
Yeah, so it started the year with, we did a paper with HubSpot, one of these leading platforms, along with partnership leaders and others, that put together a study of the top 50 platforms in the world. Let's look at companies like Salesforce. Let's look at companies like ServiceNow and Workday and Marketo and NetSuite, HubSpot, but the top 50 platforms in the world, and ask questions. How do they do this at scale? How do they create these integrations at this scale? How do they surround the buyer? How do they deploy the resources, the people, the processes, the programs, the underlying technology? How does this all work? And what makes these companies, obviously they're the highest valued companies in the world.
Right.
They make up the highest valuations. And if you start at the Fortune 500 at the top moving downwards, they're the most valuable companies in the world. So this is where I said every company's looking in to become a platform company.
Yes.
And the riches that come with that, you've got to learn, though, the basic underpinnings, the foundation of what it means to be a platform and how you run a platform. It just doesn't come by accident.
No.
You have to put things in place, and it takes many, many years to make sure that you can build. And it's like a universe. It's like a sun that has planets and gravity and everybody getting pulled in, because you're not going to go out and sign up everybody to be part of your platform. Your platform has to be its own flywheel that kicks out a lot of multiplier of opportunity and want people to come in. And we're breaking down now, which is a little bit of the magic, the decoder ring of what makes that happen. What kind of people do we need? What kind of programs do we need? What kind of technology should we be running? How do we go to market? Again, another reason why maybe the CEO should be a partnership leader if you're looking to be a platform in any industry.
Yeah. And this ties into the whole marketplace conversation in such a great way as well. I mean, we've discussed the $45 billion that you had predicted by the end of 2026. I think it was originally
2025. Yeah,
2025. And now you said that that's under called and potentially this year. What are we saying?
Yeah. So, I mean, at Wall Street now, we've got not only the big 3 hyperscalers, but we've got now the bigger marketplace, SaaS companies and others starting to show what their future commits are.
Yep.
And it's one of these, again, to get these high valuations, investors love to know how much money you've got committed to you. And just the top 3 have over $340 billion committed.
Astounding.
And then somebody at some point has to figure out how to put that into product SKUs and put that together into 7-layer stacks. But that $45 billion, which was a hockey stick, it's an 86% compounded annual growth. We think it might be doubling every single year, and we don't see it stopping after 2025. This is just a trend that continues feeding this new buyer.
Well, in fact, the number went from 300 billion to 340 billion in 1 quarter.
Correct.
So we'll see what the
it's expanding, and we've also got in the last 30 or 60 days, we've got 4 press releases now. I'll use AWS Marketplace as an example. CrowdStrike, Snowflake, Palo Alto, and Splunk have all issued press releases that they're running $1 billion business on one marketplace. And one of the predictions we made alongside the 45 billion, which we also undercalled, is that AWS as a leading marketplace would join the likes of TD SYNNEX and Ingram as a top 10 distributor by 2025. Again, undercalled it, they're already there.
They're there now.
You have to get to about 5 billion to overtake D&H or an exclusive networks, and they're already there.
Yeah.
So this is an area where they may have achieved, $5 billion as one marketplace, but their sights are on the 60 billion at TD SYNNEX and 50 billion at Ingram. The numbers are astounding, and when you're doubling every single year, it doesn't take you long to get there.
So what does this do to the channel and to distribution?
Well, the blow up was this, is the channel from decades ago was at the point of sale. All the economics worked at the point of sale, and partners were only measured at that point of sale.
Yeah.
How much do you sell? Well, the fact of the matter is money is changing hands in a very different way. And one thing that happened, and Microsoft led this, and everybody soon followed, is Microsoft declared that a marketplace fee shouldn't be 20% or shouldn't be 35%, which has Apple in court with Epic, and 45% of what they're trying to choose in New York Times. But Microsoft's like, we're not going to make money off our ecosystem. It costs us about 3% of the fee to run a marketplace. So much like a MasterCard or Visa swipe in consumer, it's about 3% of the deal to architect the movement of money, which is complicated. It's, we got to move the money. We've got to take on the risk that the customer doesn't pay. We've got to wait for the time value of money, net 30, net 60, net 90. And in the end of all that, we have to hire Biff to break knees when that customer doesn't pay. But forever, we thought in the 1980s that was worth 40% margin.
Yep.
Then it was 30, then it was 20. And, we're all kind of deciding what that's worth. But it's now been declared, and Google followed Microsoft. And just a few months ago, AWS is finally there.
On board, yes.
But everybody's at the point now, and all the end users know that the whole value add of taking my money on behalf of a vendor is worth 3. So let's talk about where the other 17% of the gross to nets are. And a partner would tell you, well, I guess I do free consulting, I do free design and architecture, I do free implementations and integrate. I've always got paid at one point. And a lot of the other stuff that maybe other partners like a system integrator would charge for, I've ended up giving for free. And now in a marketplace model, I could still go get the other 17% on a private offer or some sort of multi-partner offer.
Yep.
And I might be willing to give up the 3% because that's a part of the business I'm not all that interested in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's changing the entire value chain equation is what I would say there. If you're part of the movement, I have a very strong point of view. I've sat on both sides of the table for over 30 years now. I built growth through partnerships in PC, internet, cloud, mobile, AI, marketplaces, and more. I've also seen the demise of organizations that are resistant to change. I'm part of the communities, special interest groups, and associations, and I don't see one place that mirrors the ecosystem and brings it all together. You see, I see a vibrant world where hyperscalers, builders, ISV sellers, SIs, MSPs, and other partners come together to spark the ecosystem's growth. I've talked to many of you, and what I continually hear is it's noisy, I don't know whom to listen to, and where to go. There's a massive opportunity, but I'm not sure how to get there. Well, you've been heard. We're getting ready to open the doors early to pilot this new experience. We want this to be your place with your feedback and participation. If you're a builder, an innovator, or a leader, visit our website. So we can't have a talk in 2024 or even 2023 for that matter without bringing up AI, generative AI. I did an interview with Microsoft's leading reseller and Google's leading reseller earlier this week. And we had this discussion about what's happened this past year. I mean, Satya Nadella, recognized as CEO of the year, gave us all a masterclass this past year, right? About partnerships, in fact. He had been working on the Genai partnership for 5 years or so, and it came to fruition, and everyone was caught on their back heels. I mean, Google was caught on their back heels. They responded accordingly, but it's changing the game now, right? It's changing the valuation of those organizations quite a bit from 2023 to this year. What would you say about Genai?
Yeah, and I think, Microsoft's a good story where, he will be crowned, with the Jack Welch Award as, the leader of the decade, if not leader of the century so far. Because, overachieving Apple a couple of weeks ago in valuation was a big testament to all the moves that have been made, not just the channel and partner moves, but the moves into generative AI. But he's also confused the market. He's come out and said it's a $4 trillion opportunity. And in a world economy that's $105 trillion in GDP, that's material. And so partners, kind of look at that and go, I think I believe him, but can somebody break it down for me what that really means to me? Where in the cycle is this? What can I charge for? What's my opportunity? How fast it's growing? What kind of skills and competencies do I need to build? Listen, I run a small business over here, and can somebody break down that $4 trillion for me? And at an analyst firm at Canellis, that's what we've been doing. Here's the $15 billion connected to that bigger number that happened last year. Here's the $158 billion that's going to happen within the next 4 years, a 59% growth rate. But very specifically, here's the type of business model, here's the kind of skills, here's the kind of products you need to sell, services you need to sell to go take advantage of this. And it's somewhat time delayed. If you're a VAR or MSP, there's not a laundry list of things that you're going to go and double or triple your business in 2024 around. Unless you're doing deep consulting on language models and tuning and training and, connecting the dots between the 85% of the world's business data and these large language models sitting out at OpenAI and sitting with Google. Unless you're in these deep business conversations with the board and C-suite at the biggest of companies, there's not a lot to do this year. And, our recommendation is perhaps go back and look at the cybersecurity industry growing by double digits. Look at managed services growing by double digits. Look at the things you can control today, and perhaps don't get too excited about, changing everything, shutting down your current business and going all in.
Yeah. I know. I would add to that. I do think, I don't know where the $4 trillion number comes from, how you break out. It's we're obviously not there now, but I do think that there is an immediate opportunity. Microsoft layered in some significant investments and incentives on their Copilot products. And I do think for some of the MSPs, what I'm hearing now is that every CEO is having a conversation about Gen AI, right? How do I take advantage? How do I execute against it? In fact, I heard a quote this week from somebody from Microsoft that the CEO is now the new CIO. I love that quote. I'm going to reuse that. But I think they're making transformation decisions that were normally made further down in the organization. What would you say?
Yeah. So we went and asked, Microsoft's current 400,000 partners what they think. And a third of them are very skeptical, and they're happy to take a laggard or late majority play. The next third are on the fence, and they're not going to play early majority or even early adopter. And then 1/3, and this was a comparison to when we asked them 2018 about AI. 1/3's a little bit more excited on the front end. So a highly skeptical, balanced audience, because guess what? They've lived through emerging tech hype cycles before. 10 years ago when IoT was going to take over the world. Last year when metaverse was going to change everything. So, whether it's quantum computing or, robotics or self-driving cars or 3D printers, this is a skeptical audience to say that, we'll take a little bit of a wait and see. And certain partner types that are connected to certain customer segments are going to see a huge opportunity up front. And, it's wise that, somebody breaks down that number and makes sure that over the course of 5 years, ahead of time when to start to engage and get into these conversations. Yeah,
the technology life cycle adoption curve, right?
And I know the $4 trillion. When you break it against the world's economy and 27 industries across 193 countries, and you start to, augment resources and replace resources. And when you rethink your marketing and sales and customer success, your invoicing, your billing, your finance and operations and HR, every part of your company changes.
That's right.
That adds up to $4 trillion pretty fast.
Yes, it does.
The fact of the matter, though, is that's world economy talk. What services can I sell next Tuesday? And how do I skew them up? And what kind of people do I need to train to go and delight the customer? Is the conversations we should be having in partnerships. Again, another reason why, senior in your company, you should have, people that can understand how this is all going to work.
So you and I have talked about the mid-market quite a bit, and I spent quite a bit of time analyzing this market. I did an event where we featured some of the leaders from Microsoft and talked about the mid-market opportunity. In fact, one of those leaders is doubling down on partner attach because I think it's an underpenetrated, I believe you'll agree with me here, underpenetrated market. I wanted to get your viewpoint on this as well, because I do think it's a huge opportunity for partners in general that have all kind of clustered to the top, to the enterprise, we'll call it 11,000 enterprise organizations.
Yeah, so I happen to run mid-market for years and years at IBM and Lenovo, so I know it's kind of the mushy middle. Companies can quite easily have a top-down strategy, the top 11,000, how to put out your resources, how to, cover, have the capacity, have the capabilities to cover that market. And then, the SMB is a little bit less known. It's a bottoms up, it's a community-led, grassroots-led. You've got to influence the influencers, which is a big part of the channel. This is where your channel strategies really form an SMB. Yeah. Because you need an army to help you to surround those customers. And mid-market is probably the least understood because that's where the two things meet. And there's not a lot of expertise. There's not a list of partners you can just download that, have mid-market as their only target. There's not just an easy go-to-market routes to market that you can check the box. Oh, I need to sign up these distributors. I need to sign up these partners. I need to go do this. And then we're going to go get our fair share of mid-market. So the leaders, are underinvested in their own companies. There's not an understanding either below or above them in their companies of what this is. So, I'm glad that you're taking this on to figure out what this mushy middle is and how to take action.
I think it's I think it's marketplace driven, and it's combining all of the partners, all the seats at the table to accomplish what we need to do. To your point, it is the mushy middle, and the organizations at the top aren't paying attention. The ones at the bottom aren't paying attention the way they need to.
Right. So some need to scale up, some need to scale down.
That's right.
And it's a massive market.
Huge.
It's a huge market. And, for companies, there's billions of dollars of opportunity that doesn't take that level of investment.
I mean, I'll quote out of school here. Microsoft alone has somewhere between $75+ billion of business in that market. So that's a pretty significant market for partners. So I loved having you here today. And next time we're going to have a longer session. We're going to host you here and maybe even have some partners in the room. But we're on a tight timeline today. So for our viewers, listeners, what do they need to be thinking about and doing differently now that we're in 2024 in a big way?
I mean, the first thing, and this is not a surprise to anyone, is continue to be obsessed about your customer. Get obsessed about the people they trust. Get obsessed about what they read, where they go, who they follow. Get obsessed about a journey that isn't about the point of sale. It's about the 28 moments before that.
Yeah.
It's at the point of sale, regardless of how money changes hands. So getting the customer to the dance, getting them on the dance floor, and now with every company, keeping them dancing all night long, every 30 days forever.
Yes.
One company a couple of weeks ago became the most valuable company in the world by telling Wall Street we'd be the most sticky, predictable, reliable, repeatable, and scalable revenue, not reliant on a September launch of a product every year.
Yes.
And the market responded.
It did.
So, we can talk about a $3 trillion company, or we can talk about a startup. The same thing is if you get obsessed about your customer, when you move outwards from your customer, you're going to find that there's partnerships everywhere in the integrations, in the go-to-market, in the routes to market, in all the influence. All the things you need to do around your customer are really partner-driven at this point. And that's why I think your leadership should have much better skills in partnerships.
I love what you have to say. Jay, I want to thank you. This is your 6th appearance. The robe is coming. It's
the Saturday Night Live robe.
Saturday Night Live robe is coming, except it's going to have the 5-timer, and then we're going to have the stripes added for every time you come. Yeah, we'll have them both. I want to thank you for joining us today, live from South Florida.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ultimate Guide to Partnering. Online at ultimateguidetopartnering.com. If you liked this episode, I'd be thrilled if you left us up to a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify. This helps us to continue to feature amazing guests. Also, please check out and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Ultimate Partner. We'll catch you next time. on The Ultimate Guide to Partnering.